Mickey Curry has been playing drums with Bryan Adams for 38 years. The well-seasoned veteran first recorded with Adams while he was still performing with the Hall Oates band. Mickey talks about how it all came together.
I was in a band in Connecticut called the Scratch Band, and we were working every night, bars, clubs, all over New England, but wasn't really going, for me, it was sort of, stagnant. The little bit of money I was making, you're buying cymbals and sticks and heads, and it just wasn't. So I thought, if I want to do this for a living, I'm going to have to move on. And I didn't, it was hard to do that, but I did it. I quit the band. And I got a call from Peter Lubin, who was working with, I think he was a Mercury label guy at the time. And he said, there are a couple things in New York, come and do. So I did a showcase with a girl named Abby Cantor, who was fantastic. She was great. I did a couple of showcases with her. And I started working with a band called Tom Dickey and the Desires at Electric Lady. So I had done G.E. Smith's record in November or December at the Power Station with Bob Clearmountain producing and engineering. Tommy Mottola managed them. He also managed Hall & Oates. Mm-hmm. And he came down to a session and asked me if I'd like to work on a Hall & Oates record, the Private Eyes album. So a week later I was working on that record. And while I was working on that record, Clearmountain called during the session. It was the Private Eyes session. He called, there's a phone call for you, okay? And he said, I've got this guy from Canada and he's great and I want you to play drums on it. And it was Bryan. So, 2 weeks later I was at the Power Station working on the You Want It, You Got It album with Bryan. So that summer I went on the road with GE. We opened for Squeeze across the country. It was the first time I had been across the country. It was great. And then in the fall I was on the road with Hall & Oates. Wow. And then in between touring and all of this, I would get to go in the studio and work with Bryan still.
That was a good month.
Yeah. March, April of '81 was a big turning point for me.
That sounds like that's very cool.
Yeah, and it happened quickly, which was amazing. I was fairly young to be because they were already well established and they had like great players. But yeah, just when Tommy came down to the Tom Dickey sessions, he said, "Look, you're perfect for what we're looking for. So maybe you want to come and." Yeah. Great. I said, of course, I'd love to play with Hall & Oates. And I was a big Hall & Oates fan.
Yeah, that makes it really
The
cool.
She's Gone stuff. I was still in high school when all those records were out, and I loved Bernard's drumming on all that stuff. And Roger Pope played on a bunch of it, and they had great. Jim Gordon's on a couple of Hall & Oates records. They had always had great drummers, and I loved their records. I was a big fan. So when I got asked to do that, I couldn't believe it.
Early drummer influence. The Ringo stuff was great. So
yeah.
What are some of your early?
Definitely Danny Serafin. Those first. There was something about the sound and his playing on the first two Chicago albums. The second album kills me. But those first two Chicago albums, just something about the way the sound is compressed and the way he played, and he didn't overplay, but he had the most beautiful choices of things, and those arrangements are so complicated. Some of that stuff's so complicated, the time on some of those songs, and there's little musical interludes between songs where they're doing these crazy times and stuff, and there's something about that. I just, and I wanted to be that guy. I really wanted to play like that. So for a long time, he was the only drummer I would give any sort of cred to. And everything on the radio. I listened to the radio as a kid. I played along, I put the headphones on and play along to the radio. And it was always guys like Hal Blaine and Benny Benjamin, Uriel Jones and Pistol Allen, the guys, all the Motown guys. Al Jackson Jr.
Your youngest thing, you were saying something when you were young, you saw somebody on TV.
Ringo.
Ringo.
I saw Ringo in '64 on the Ed Sullivan Show. I was at my grandmother's house. I was living with my grandmother.
You remember?
Yeah, I remember it because my grandmother wasn't going to let us watch these animals on TV. There's no way you kids are watching that. But I swear this is the truth. The TV was across the living room, and our room, our little bedroom where the 7 of us had bunk beds in it, was like a bunkhouse. The door never closed all the way. So we could see, I could just see sort of the left side of the television set. And we're all of us lined up. It's like the Brady Bunch or something. We're all lined up in the doorway watching. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Ringo just, the Beatles blew me away, but Ringo, just the way he moved and his kit and the way the cymbals are sort of washing. And then that hi-hat thing he does where he's sort of brushing the, that was it, I was hooked. And I was 7 years old.
So was your grandmother watching this thing?
Yeah.
So you couldn't watch it?
Yeah, she could watch. Yeah,
room, right?
my older brother could watch it, and my mother was watching it, of course, because she was a big Beatle fan. You know, I met him years later. I got to meet him, and he was so nice to me and so sweet. I told him, I said, man, I am your biggest fan. You have no idea. I'm your biggest fan. He went, no, you're not. I am, which was very Ringo thing to say. I sit low and far back, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I was in a car accident when I was 21 years old. I used to sit higher, and I had a really bad car accident. I crushed the 3 lower vertebrae in my back, and my back was a mess for like months. So when I got, after 5 months, I sat back down at my drum kit, and I couldn't sit and play. It was so painful. So I tried raising the seat, and that made it worse. I tried sitting closer, that made it worse. So I started lowering the seat, lowering the seat, lowering the seat. And I got it as low as I could get the stool without, you know, as low as it would go. And I started having to lean over because I was sitting so low, I had to sort of lean over the kit, which put some sort of weird curve thing in my lower back. And then I pushed back from the kit a little bit. And now I'm leaning over the kit, but everything's up here, you know, and it took all the pressure off of the lower spine, and that's where I've been ever since. I mean, I kind of had to relearn, you know, a lot of, you got to change your angles, and snare drum had to have a bit more tilt, and you know, and it's up here. Right. I mean, you know, I'm got to be careful I don't whack myself in the. I do actually a lot. I whack myself in the face.
How do you prepare for a recording session with a new artist when you go into the studio?
Well, hopefully there are demos, so I can sort of be familiar with what's going on. You know, you check people out. It's really easy now, especially with the internet. Everyone's on somewhere. You can find out a little bit about. And you know, do your homework. Plus, I think I'm at the point now where people call because they want me, whatever it is I do, as opposed to just they're looking for a drummer that's going to come in and give them, you know, it's like, well, if I'm the guy they called, it's because they want me to play the way I play, right. Which is easier. I've done sessions where you're the drummer and your thing is not what they're looking for. Right. So you have to sort of give them.
You're the hired gun.
You're the hired gun. So
and
just
this, they want Mickey.
Yeah, and I think it's getting to that now where, you know, it's like if I'm the guy they think is right for their project, then I'm the guy they call. Yeah. And it makes it easier, and most of the session work I do now is that's what I do. They'll send a demo or something, and I listen and go through it. I write some cheat sheets, write myself some notes. You know, stops, starts, breakdowns. Maybe I've got an idea for the bridge or whatever, and just you blow through the tracks. And I think most people are pretty happy with what you give them, as long as it's not, you know, you don't want to overplay, but at the same time, you know, you need to give them what they need for their record or whatever it is.
So your discography includes Hall Oates, Sam Phillips, Bone Burnett, Bryan Adams, Elvis Costello, Bruce Coburn, Tina Turner, The Cult, Alice Cooper, Celine Dion, Roy Orbison, Survivor, Jude Cole, Kenny Loggins, Cher, G.E. Smith, Rodney Crowell, Meatloaf, Carly Simon, Richard Thompson, Los Lobos, Steve Winwood, and Pavarotti?
Oh, well, we did the Pavarotti stuff we did live at his place in Modena. He's got a big outdoor, he had this beautiful outdoor venue, and we got invited to go play with him. That was such a thrill. Big orchestra, and Michael Kamen conducted, and we did a few songs with him, and then we had dinner with him, and you know, Bryan, they were friends. They were pretty good pals.
Yeah.
He was a very nice man, you know, really sweet man.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, that's a big thrill for me, the Pavarotti thing.
Tell me about working with Bryan. You've been with him for how long now?
Well, since '81, 114 years is that now? 38 years.
What's he like as a singer?
He's great. Oh,
Songwriter?
he's an amazing singer. You know, there's not a better singer out there. He can sing, and I love the way he sings. And he's a great songwriter, and Jim Vallant's a great songwriter, and he constantly coming up with the goods, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a blast. We're out here, we just pummel through these shows, and we play all these great songs, and it's really fun. You know, the audiences are great, and it's fun. The guys in the band are fantastic. I love all these guys. And Mike Pachulik, my drum tech, is absolutely the best. We've been together for years.
It's a little bit of everything.
And his drum tech, Mike, has pretty high regards for Mickey, too.
Great player, right? He's a producer and engineer's dream. He's a 1-2 take guy, you know, and he's always been that way. And I remember saying to him one time that, you know, people ask me, you know, what's Mickey Curry like, you know? And I always say, as a drummer, a big batch of meat and potatoes with a whole lot of dessert. And most drummers will know what I'm talking about. He lays it down, and he just has finesse when he plays, you know. He's just straight ahead drummer. But I think his personality is just so great. I mean, he's such a wonderful human being, you know, and when you meet him, it's like you've known him forever.
With all of the recordings that Mickey has done, I asked him if he had a favorite song that he played on.
You know, there's so many songs that I love playing on, but you know, I'm one of those guys, every time I hear anything I played on, I hear all of the angst and all of the, oh, I almost blew that, or that's not the fill I wanted to put there, or why did I do that and not this, and oh, I remember tripping over the click track on this part, or, you know, so.
Okay, but there must be one of those that you say, that wasn't bad.
The song Into the Fire I love. Yeah. That's, for me, that's a really nice, it's a really good, well done drum track. It seems to work good. There's a Sam Phillips song called Baby I Can't Please You, which is, when I hear it, I think, wow, it's mixed beautifully, but the drum track is so great up underneath it all. It's just this, you know, it's really pushing, and I like hearing that every now and then.
Baby, I can't please you, I can't please you, baby, baby, I can't please you, I can't please you, baby.
What advice would you have for a younger drummer that is just starting out even?
You know, I don't know how young guys do it now. When I was young, there were lots of places to go to play. Everybody in your neighborhood was a musician. My whole family were musicians, all my cousins and everybody. There were 4 garages in our neighborhood where bands were practicing at night. I mean, everybody was playing everywhere. And then when you're old enough, there were bars and clubs and theaters and dances and you know, KFC halls, you know, Knights of Columbus always had every little town in Connecticut had a hall where they would let kids go in during the week, and you know, there were places to play, work out with other musicians, you know, put bands together, play songs, and it doesn't exist anymore. There's so very few places for kids to go play with other musicians, and that's where I learned doing bar gigs, and you know, that's how I learned how to play. You do 5 sets every night, 7 nights a week for years. You learn how to play time, and you know, play a backbeat and songs. It's all about songs, you know.
But if you had to look at it as, was there like something, because you started in the band, I started in the band, 4th grade,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and reading and stuff. Is there one thing that you'd say as far as the school program stuff?
I think
even?
school programs are great, but they're cutting those out everywhere. There's no music in schools anymore.
Budget cuts.
They don't have any money. You know, so, you know, I do what I can locally. You know, you sort of donate stuff, or you know, I would donate my time if needed to do that or whatever. But yeah, there's just no place for young kids to do it. So, you know, they're doing it in their basement, or they're doing it in their bedrooms, or they're doing it, you know, online with someone taking. I mean, I'd encourage any kid to just stick with it and, you know, try to find other musicians and play with other people. You know, live music is really important, and sitting in a room and working it out together is really important, you know.
Tell me, have you ever really ever loved a woman? Yeah, you got to give her some faith.
You said in another interview that one of your favorite songs to play was "Have You Ever Really Loved a Woman?"
Yeah.
Now, a lot of drummers would say, "I like fast tunes. I want to crank something out."
Yeah.
But what is it about that tune?
I don't know. There's just something about that sort of the 16th feel, and the just the way the backbeat really holds back on the track. Plus, it's kind of different especially for Bryan. It's not like a big rock ballad or a big rock up-tempo thing. You know, it's all that great Spanish guitar work on there. Paco de Lucia played amazing stuff on the track, and Keith is unbelievably brilliant live with that stuff. And the dynamic of it, you know, it's just, I just like the song, and it's just, for me, it's right where I like to sit when I'm playing, you know. I can really sit down and really bring the backbeat back on that, you know.
What do you think it is about your playing that makes the song feel so good, that keeps artists coming back and wanting to put a little of that curry spice in the song?
I don't know. I always, you know, you feel so fortunate. You get those when you're a kid, and you get people saying, "That's really, man, you play. That's really what we want. That's really great," you know. And I've always been the guy. I always studied records. You know, I never listened to a record. I'm constantly analyzing records and drum tracks and what makes what click, and all of the great sort of feel songs. There's something about the way that the backbeat drops ever so slightly behind, or depending on the tempo, it's maybe slightly ahead, and it gives it there's a feel to the way that works. So I've always worked on just feel.
Did you play with the metronome?
No, I never really practiced with a metronome.
Because getting that behind the beat, the head of the beat thing is a tough thing.
Yeah, it is hard. It's not easy to, well, I don't know. I think I've always just done that. And I've always been really conscious of it. So, especially with the Hall Oates stuff, because, you know, that's soul music. And you can't be the big bashy rock basher for that stuff. You can hit hard, which is what I did, and, you know, play big notes, but they have to be in the right spot. So for me, it was always sort of keep the kick drum right on the click. No flamming with the kick drum. And then the backbeat just ever so slightly back. And that seems to work for, especially the sort of mid-tempo, medium-tempo songs, which Hall Oates had a lot of those. And Bryan's got a lot of those, you know. Somebody, Cuts Like a Knife, It's Only Love. And, you know, that's where you sort of hone in on that backbeat. But that's probably, if it's anything, that's what it is. You know, you have to just play what whoever's producing the record, or whoever the artist is, you know, they have ideas of what they want their stuff to sound like, and you gotta be able to do it.
And Mickey Curry knows how to do it. For Drumheads and Tales, I'm Bob Evans.